Hey, greetings. Michael Didier here with We Are Israel blog. This is a continuation of our Sabbath class. Today we're going to go through Deuteronomy 19, 20, and I hope 21. Last week we covered 17 and 18. 17 started with still more things that are unclear. They said, you shall not sacrifice. Part of it is the translators. They are the ones who put the word sacrifice. They're the ones who put sheep rather than flocks. But look what it says. You shall not slaughter to Yehovah. Thou shall not. It's thou. Shall not slaughter to Yehovah thy Elohim a bull or a sheep or a goat, an animal from the flocks, which has a blemish or defect. Well, the very fact that it says sacrifice leads us in a way we don't want to go, because we understand that usually when it says sacrifice, it really is slaughter. So we're talking about a particular kind of what most people call sacrifice, which is not a sacrifice at all. It's a slaughter. It's something that we're going to eat. Now, there are some things that can be for a vow or for a free will offering. We saw last week that we are not to have a mum on. Remember, the mum is the defect, the blemish or the defect. All our animals are going to come tamim to Yehovah, alive and whole. But there are times where we don't have a mum. But to have a general blanket statement like it says in 17:1 here doesn't work. It just doesn't work. The shalamim, a standard shalamim offering, doesn't have to be without a mum. It can have a blemish. Otherwise, we never get rid of our animals. No, we're bringing still things to Yehovah, the fat. We're bringing things to his priests. This is a good thing. Well, now they were talking about if anyone is found within thy gates. Again, it's thy gates, Israel's gates. It's Israel's land. It's the Ezra men's land, who has the ger who dwells with them, the men and the women, servants, ger, sons, daughters, women, wives. We want to call them wives. There are women. They might be concubines as well as wives, women. These people, though, had gone off and served other Elohim and worshiped them. Remember, when we see these Elohim, it gets translated as gods. Elohim, lawmakers and judges, and worship them. Then they say either. Again, throws us off. I think the translators are giving us an out. So either gods and worship them, either the sun or the moon. Are those the gods that we're talking about? Or is it saying something different than either? It doesn't. It says or. Has gone and served other lawmakers and judges and worshiped them. Or the sun and the moon. Or the hosts of heaven, which I have not commanded. It throws things off. These people that cause other men and women and promote other Elohim for us to, what did they say? Worship, serve, and worship, have to be destroyed from our land. We can't keep them in our land. Remember, it's within thy gates, the Ezra man's gates. You either deal with that problem or the sin is on you. Can't have the sin on you, so they gotta go. We saw last week, we'll see it probably again this week. You shall not pity them. Whoever is deserving of death shall be put to death on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, we saw last week. We're going to talk about that again this week, probably in more depth. We're going to see that these witnesses are men. Men. not ladies, probably not servants. We're talking about Ezrach men. The hands of the witnesses shall be the first against him to put him to death. Again, clues. We know that a woman doesn't ever kill a man. A man kills a man. Doesn't happen. A woman doesn't even slaughter an animal in Yehovah's kingdom. He's talking about, remember, we just finished talking about the man who's the guy who's got a man or a woman in his gates, who's turning people to other Elohim, or the sun, or the moon, or the stars of heaven. Now we're switching gears again. In verse 8, it says, whatever matter arises which is too hard for thee to judge, between decrees of blood and blood, blood and blood, between one judgment and another, between one punishment and another, matters of controversy within thy gates. You know what? The Ezra men are learning just like everybody else is. Sometimes we just need to get more information. In this case, we've got a controversy. The judges, the lawmakers within our gates, those are the men that sit at the gates of our gates, people we've appointed. They have a controversy. One thinks something should be done this way, and one thinks something should be done another way. Maybe it's two groups of people. But there's a remedy, and that is to go to the place where Yehovah puts his name and talk to the priests, the Levites, and to the judge who's there in those days. And they will teach us what we are to do. When we get back, we're going to render our decision for the men who are within our gates. We're going to teach them, just as we were taught at the place where Yehovah puts his name. And we will pronounce our decision, actually the priest's decision, or the judge's decision, or the Levite's decision, the people who were in the know. And the man who acts presumptuously, does not follow that decision, he'll be killed. He says, you shall put away the evil from Israel. So all the people, remember we're talking about people, all the people. Which people are we talking about? Generally we're talking about the Ezra men people. Shall hear and fear and no longer act presumptuously. The last thing he talked about in this chapter was a king. We're going to put a king over us. Not supposed to have a king, but Yehovah allowed it. He says he's going to come from among our brethren. He's not going to multiply horses. He's not going to multiply wives. He's not going to multiply money. He's not going to cause us to return to Egypt. Hey, let's go to Egypt. We'll make a covenant with them. We'll get some of their chariots. No, that's not how things are done. He's going to make a copy of the Torah from the one before the priests and the Levites, it says. And he's going to read it all the days of his life. And when he does, he's going to have his sons and himself blessed. We're going to help that kingdom, his kingdom, continue. What is it? The last thing said? That his heart may not be lifted up above his brethren, not his sisterin. That he may turn aside, that he may not turn aside from the commandments to the right hand or to the left, and that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his sons in the midst of Israel. 18 was the last chapter that we covered. Talked about the priests, talked about what they are, what is their due. We saw perversions again. I hate this. I hate that we have to deal with perversions. Look what it says. Here's a great example. 18:3. And this shall be the priest's due from the people, from those who offer a slaughter. Okay, what does a priest get from a slaughter? We've already seen it. He gets the breast and he gets the leg. Look what it says here, whether a bull or a sheep. Remember, again, we're not talking about sheep. We're talking about bull or sheep or goats. They shall give to the priest, it says a shoulder. Okay, shoulder's correct. But instead of a breast, it says the cheeks. The cheeks and the stomach. What? He goes on. The first fruits of your grain, the first fruits of your oil. What about the first fruits of your herd? The bakor of your herd and the bakor of your flocks. Doesn't even mention it. Instead, it talks about the first of the fleece of your sheep, of thy sheep. Ah! Why is it doing this? Then it talks about the Levite who's within their gates. What's a Levite doing within our gates? That's another thing that we've seen all throughout, well, many places in Deuteronomy. It talks about the Ger who dwells with you, then it talks about the Levite within your gates. Why? What's he doing within our gates? They've got cities for the Levites. Then look what it says in 18:8. They shall have equal portions to eat. You know, that's interesting. I always had kind of the feeling that every 10 families might have a Levite. Just because a Levite gets a tenth, and that way he's taken care of, and he has probably kind of the same due coming to him as the Ezra men have coming to them. But that doesn't necessarily jive with something like this. It says they shall have equal portions to eat, talking about they, the Levites. But then what it says, besides what comes from the sale of his inheritance. It just said in verse 1 or 2 that they don't have any inheritance. I'm sure we read that. The priests, the Levites, all the tribe of Levi shall have no part nor inheritance with Israel. So what inheritance are we talking about? From the sale of his inheritance, he doesn't have any. Well, we talked about witchcraft. We talked about soothsayers and interpreters of omens and sorcerers, conjurers. We talked about Bohemian Grove, all of the U.S., many of the U.S. ex-presidents and senators and representatives, actors, people in the know, the rich, go to this abominable place, Bohemian Grove. You should learn about the Bohemian Grove and find out about the child sacrifice, the mock child sacrifice that goes on there to the god Melech. Oh, it's wicked. It's wicked. It's one of the reasons I left the kingdom of the United States and joined myself to Yehovah's kingdom. Gotta find out about it. One of the last things we talked about was the prophet. Like Moses, he says, and Yehovah thy Elohim will raise up for thee a prophet like me from thy midst, from thy brethren. You know, I always feel like they keep saying thy and thee and thou instead of you and your. Here they switched it. Him you shall hear. Who is it that we're raising up? I did some research on this. I'm not sure where I put it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's talked about Joshua when we had some questions last week about Joshua. I believe we're talking about Ezrach men that Yehovah, remember, the first time Yehovah raised up a male child to deliver Israel. This was the prophecy that Miriam gave when she was 3 or 4 or 5 years old. My mother and my father will have a child, and he will deliver Israel. What has been shall be again. What has been done shall be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. Look at here. 23. It says, but I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all the countries where I have driven them and bring them back to their folds. And they shall be fruitful and increase. And I will set up shepherds over them who will feed them. They shall fear no more, nor be dismayed, nor shall they be lacking, says Yehovah. That's Jeremiah 23, 3 and 4. I believe these are the men, like Moses, who are coming to deliver Israel a second time. Jeremiah continues saying something like this, no longer will they say, great is Yehovah who delivered Israel from the land of Egypt. But great is Yehovah who delivered Israel from the north and from all the countries where I have scattered them. I believe Yehovah is raising up a prophet like Moses who's going to help deliver Israel a second time. Joshua was not that prophet. Well, let's continue with where we're going to start today. Talking about the cities of refuge. When Yehovah, again, we're talking about thy Elohim. You know what? I got to tell you, I have a problem with that too. How come it's not your Elohim? Why is it thy Elohim? Why in, what is this? Numbers 35. All the cities ye shall give to the Levites shall be 40, and 8 cities. Them shall ye give with the open land about them. These are all second person plural that he's saying this in. He continues down here. He says exactly the same thing, 35, 13 through 15. When Yehovah thy Elohim has cut off the nations, whose land Yehovah thy Elohim is giving thee, hear that? Giving thee, who is he giving it to? It hasn't happened yet, has it? And thou dispossess them and dwell in their cities and in their houses. Thou shalt separate 3 cities for thyself in the midst of thy land. See, it doesn't, 3 cities for thyself in the midst of thy land. Are we talking about Israel as a whole? Because remember, we can talk about the male child, we can talk about the plural he, but that's not generally how Yehovah talks when he's talking to Israel's seed. He talks about the you and the ye and the your. I find it a little bit, it's just not what I would expect. Let me read my notes here. This is again 35, 13 through 15. And the cities which you give, you shall have 6 cities of refuge. You shall appoint 3 cities on this side of the Jordan, and 3 cities you shall appoint in the land of Canaan, which will be cities of refuge for Israel's seed, and for the Ger, and for the Toshab. Okay, that's so cool. Helps us understand who the you is. The you is Israel's seed. B'nai Israel, the Ezra men. Then he talks about the Ger and the Toshab. Remember, there's just 3 or 4 different kinds of men in the world. What were they? Ezra men, Ger, Toshab, those are the people that have a relationship with Israel and knows Israel, and the Ben Nakar, the man from the foreign nations who doesn't know Israel at all, doesn't know anything about him. I was that man for years. 45 years, perhaps more. I was a Ben Nakar. Finally, I met somebody who had some understanding, was wearing tzitzit, and said, you need to find out about those. Well, that was the start of a very big adventure for me. We talked about where these cities are. I'm not going to go over it again. Kadesh in Galilee, Shechem. Remember, Shechem is up by the two mountains, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, and Hebron. And then on the east side, Golan in the north, Ramoth Gilead in the middle, and then Bezer in the south. Those are our cities of refuge. We'll have new cities next time, I'm sure. You shall separate 3 cities. Again, 35, it's talking about second person. Now among the cities which you will give to the Levites, you shall appoint 6 cities of refuge, to which a manslayer may flee. And to these you shall add 42 cities. So all the cities you shall give to the Levites shall be 48. These you shall give with their common lands. Again, thou shalt separate 3 cities for thyself. 3 cities for thyself. Again, is he talking about the Ezer men, the plural he? It's the only way to understand this if we're going to do this. But it just doesn't follow the way he's done it in the past. In the midst of thy land, which Yehovah thy Elohim is giving thee to possess. You shall prepare roads for thyself, and divide into 3 parts the territory of thy land, which Yehovah thy Elohim is giving thee to inherit, that the manslayer may flee there. The manslayer, remember we were talking about the Rashak. And this is the case of the manslayer, Ha-Rashak, the manslayer, who flees there, that he may live. Whoever kills his neighbor unintentionally, not having hatred for him in the past, as when a man goes out to the woods. This is for an example. For example, when a man goes out to the woods with his neighbor to cut timber, and his hand swings a stroke with an axe to cut down a tree, and the head slips from the handle and strikes his neighbor so that he dies. Oh no! He shall flee to one of these cities and live. Lest, look what it says, the avenger of blood. Lest the blood avenger, the avenger of blood. They put the definite article on the avenger instead of the blood, but it's on the blood. And it's on the slayer, the Rashak. Lest the avenger pursue the slayer. Well, his anger is hot and overtake him, because the way is long, and kills him, though he was not deserving of death, since he has not hated the victim in times past. Emotions are strong when we lose a loved one. There's serious things going on when blood is shed in thy land as well. I think I've got some verses that are related to that statement. I put the avenger of blood is near of kin to the man. The blood avenger himself shall put the Rashak to death. When he meets him, he shall put him to death. What is the word there? Mut. To death. Men kill men. This is not a woman. The blood avenger is not a woman. Therefore I command thee, saying, thou shalt separate 3 cities for thyself. Now if Yehovah, your Elohim, thy Elohim, enlarges thy territory as he has sworn to thy fathers, and gives thee the land which he promised to give thy fathers, and if thou keep all the commandments and do them. We keep all the commandments. You know, if we're not going to keep the commandments and do them, it's not going to work. And if thou keep all these commandments and do them, which I commanded thee today, to love Yehovah thy Elohim, and to walk always in his ways, then thou shalt add 3 more cities for thyself besides these, lest innocent blood be shed in the midst of thy land. Hear this. We've got the blood avenger, I think is a near of kin to the man. But we have another man who has something at stake with catching the man who's killed another man, regardless of whether he did it on purpose or by accident. Let's find out why. Lest, I'm going to read on the right here, lest the innocent blood be shed in the midst of thy land, which Yehovah thy Elohim is giving thee for an inheritance. And it says guilt of bloodshed. No, it doesn't say guilt of bloodshed. It says, and all the blood. Here it is right here. All the blood. The bloodim. All the blood be upon thee. If it happens in thy land, it's on thee. We got to deal with this. Is the avenger of blood possibly the owner of the gates? I think it's both. A near of kin and the man who is within his gates. He's got to deal with that blood. Doesn't want the blood on him, does he? But if anyone hates his neighbor, lies in wait for him, rises against him, and strikes him mortally, so that he dies and flees to one of these cities, what's going to happen? Remember, what kind of city are we talking about? We're talking about one of the cities of the refuge. Who are the elders in the city of refuge? They're one of the 48 Levitical cities, aren't they? That means the elders in these cities know the law. There's safety in that. You know what? When we're talking about capital punishment, knowing that you're going to a place where men know Yehovah's word and you're going to be treated with equity and with justice, there's a great comfort in that if it was an accident. Of course, if it wasn't an accident, that's not too much comfort, is it? Be sure your sins will find you out. I'm still reading the notes for innocent blood in the land which Yehovah has given you being shed. Here it says, any man. This is ish. Again, we're talking about men. This is not ladies. There are no lady ishes. Any man of Israel's house who kills cattle or a lamb or a goat in the camp, or who kills it outside the camp and does not bring it to the door of the tabernacle of meeting to offer an offering to Yehovah before the tabernacle of Yehovah, blood shall be imputed on that man. Hear that? Blood being imputed on us is a very serious offense. Now, this is in regard to the food that we slaughter. This is a man of Israel who kills a cattle or a lamb or a goat and does not bring it to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. The blood shall be imputed on that man. Blood he has shed, and that man shall be cut off from among his people. You don't want to be cut off from among Yehovah's people. So this shedding of blood, how many times does Yehovah tell us when we slaughter an animal to make sure the blood gets put into the ground. Doesn't get drunk. You don't strangle an animal so that the blood stays in the animal. You always want to get the blood to a safe place. That keeps us safe. Do you want to be kept safe? Get rid of the blood properly. But here's a man whose blood has been shed in your place. A man. What did Yehovah say in Genesis? Oh, it must have been 12. Talking about a man who kills a man. He's going to be killed. We have this term, guilt of bloodshed. I see it everywhere. But every time I look for it, it doesn't say guilt of bloodshed. It says something like this: from all the blood. Deliver me from, it says in Psalms 51, deliver me from the guilt of bloodshed. But really it doesn't say that. It says from all the blood. You know what? We don't understand that the blood is coming on us. The meat that we eat that is not slaughtered properly, the blood is on us. Which is why I don't eat meat that I didn't slaughter. Let's see what this other one says. This is Deuteronomy 12. Oh yeah, this is interesting. Talking about when there is no, remember we were just talking about in this verse, does not bring it to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. We don't have a door of the tabernacle of meeting right now, do we? It's too far from us if we had it. But look what it says here in Deuteronomy 12. I think this is interesting. When Yehovah, your Elohim, enlarges your borders, as he has promised you, and you say, let me eat meat, because you long to eat meat. I'm sure this is a thou let thee eat meat, because because thou longs to eat meat. Thou may eat as much meat as thy heart desires. If the place where Yehovah thy Elohim chooses to put his name is too far from thee, then you may slaughter from thy herd and thy flock. Thou may slaughter from thy herd or thy flock. These are your animals. You're doing the slaughtering for you to eat, just as he commanded thee, and thou may eat within thy gates as much as thy heart desires. Just as the gazelle and the deer are eaten. Remember, we can eat the deer and the gazelle. We have to make sure the blood gets put into the ground. So you may eat them, the flock or the herd. The unclean and the clean and the unclean alike may eat them. Not so when we're going to bring it to the tabernacle of Yehovah, to the altar. Only the clean get to eat it. Only be sure, look what he says, only be sure that thou do not eat the blood, for the blood is the life. Thou may not eat the life with the meat. No, this thing we call guilt of bloodshed has very serious implications. Let me look at that verse in Isaiah 51. Here. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a steadfast spirit in me. Do not cast me away from thy presence, and do not take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation. Uphold me with your generous spirit. Then I will teach transgressors your ways, and sinners will be converted to you. Oh, that's what I want to do. Deliver me from all the blood. Oh, Elohim, and the Elohim of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of thy righteousness. Deliver me from all the blood. O Yehovah, open my lips, that my mouth shall show forth thy praise. For thou do not desire sacrifice, slaughter, else I would give it. Thou dost not delight in burnt offerings. The slaughters of Elohim are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. These, O Elohim, you will not despise. That's what he wants from us first. A broken and contrite heart that will turn ourselves to him. Unless we're his. Slaughters, burnt offerings mean nothing. Your sacrifices, we're going to give 10%, 20% of our income this year to this special offering. Oh, brother. No, it means nothing. He wants you. So, we're going to the elders of the city. I said, this is a Levite city, so all the elders are Levites who know Yehovah's ways. He says, the elders of the city shall send and bring him from there and deliver him over to the hand of the blood, deliver him over to the blood avenger's hand that he may die. I guess I skipped a verse. But if anyone hates his neighbor, lies in wait for him, rises against him, and strikes him mortally so that he dies, and he flees to one of these cities. He's stayed his life for a few more days, perhaps, and the elders of the city shall send and bring him from there and deliver him over to the blood avenger's hand that he may die. Look what he says. Thy eyes shall not pity him, but thou shalt put away innocent blood. It doesn't say guilt of the innocent blood. It just says put away innocent blood, the innocent blood. Put away the innocent blood from Israel. We do not want to have blood shed in our land. This is a serious offense. It's going to get us kicked out. That it may go well with thee. That's what I think. Is the avenger the one who owns the gates? Is he the representative of the one who owns the gates? I want to know more. 14. Thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's... Oh, look at this. We're switching to a different thought right now. We've just been talking about someone who kills somebody, the avengers of blood coming after him. So we don't have this blood in our land. Having these Levitical cities to keep an innocent man safe who had this happen to him by accident. Having it happen to you by accident, I almost feel like that's still Yehovah changing your life, redirecting your life, because you're going to live in a city of refuge the rest of your days. Well, at least until the high priest dies. It's like you've been delivered into the hands of Yehovah. Now he says, thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark, which the men of old have set. The men of old have set. In thy inheritance, which thou wilt inherit in the land that Yehovah thy Elohim is giving thee to possess. But why is this verse between these two sections? Could it be that disputes over land can be deadly? This is why many wars are fought. Yeah, disputes over land, isn't it? Many times resources. I think that's why the United States faked the 9/11 problem. Black flagged those towers to blame it on the Iraqis so that we could go take their land. This is resources, isn't it? Fighting over resources. Get people stirred up good and strong so that we can do this. There's implications to what goes on. We don't hear all the stories. If you haven't found out about 9/11, you really need to find out about what happened on 9/11. There's a lot of good videos out there. He says, one witness shall not rise against a man concerning any iniquity or any sin that he commits, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, the matter shall be established. One witness. Again, we're changing gears again. The next chapter that we're going to talk about is going to war. One witness shall not rise against a man. Here's the word that we're looking at. Against a man. An ish. It's not a woman. Isn't that interesting? Wouldn't you expect it to say against a person, a nefesh? Then maybe you could include the woman. Here's the word that they use for witness. Ed, or aid. A witness. Here's Genesis 31. If thou afflict my daughters, this is the father of Rachel and Leah. I'm spacing on his name right offhand. Who chased after Jacob when he left with all his sons and his daughter and his 4 women. He says, if thou afflict my daughters, or if thou take other women besides my daughters. He'd already taken Bilhah and Zilpah. Although no man is with thee, see, Elohim is witness. Do you hear what's going on there? Although no man, no ish, is with thee. What is he saying? He's saying that the men are the ones who are going to be the witnesses. He says, Elohim is witness between you and me. Of course, aid is a masculine noun. No surprise there. Let's look at some other verses where it uses aid. All Yehovah's 10 commandments were given to his Ezrach, each one individually. Remember, it talks about thou. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt keep the Sabbath. Here it is. 6 days thou shalt labor and do thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yehovah thy Elohim. In it thou shalt do no work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy male servant, nor thy female servant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger who is within thy gates. The thou is all the Ezra men. Here's the 10th commandment. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, possession. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's woman, possession. Nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. It's all about coveting possessions. Here's my point. Who is the witness? Thou shalt not bear false aid against thy neighbor. It's men. Clearly, this commandment is about bearing false witness, B-E-A-R, bearing false witness, was for the man. Yehovah's Ezra, not a woman, not a children, not the servants, not the ger. Of course, we must understand that what the Ezra's possessions do, they do. Oh, we'll talk about that later on in this chapter. Your ox, well, maybe not in this chapter, in this book. If your ox, your servant lets an ox go, one that used to hurt others in the past, and he hurts another man, it's not the servant who's going to be killed. It's you who's responsible for that ox. You should have done something with that ox. Well, it was the servant that did it. No, it's buck stops with you. But the point here is only men can be witnesses. Here's a good one. If a false witness rises against any ish, to testify against him in wrongdoing, then both the men, this is the man who's being accused and the man who's doing the accusing, both the enoshim, this is the plural form of ish, ha-enoshim, the men in the controversy shall stand before Yehovah, before the priests and the judges who serve in those days. And the judge shall make careful inquiry, and indeed, if the witness is a false witness who has testified falsely against his brother, then you shall do to him as he thought to have done to his brother. You shall do to him as he thought to have done. You see that these are men? So you shall put away the evil from among you. Ezra men testify against Ezra men. Ezra men are the witnesses, not the ladies. If the ladies are seeing something, they'll say, hey, come over here, you got to see this, and bring somebody with you. Then you got two witnesses. The lady's not the witness. You know, we live in a time where women are treated like men. But that's not always been the case. And that's not going to be the case in the future. Here's another great one. Speaking of the plural, he, Israel, whom Yehovah is raising up, even now over the world, he says, ye are my witnesses. My ish. He's talking about men. Says Yehovah, and my servants. There's no lady servants. Avadim is the word that we're talking about there. My avadim and my avadim is literally what it's saying. Whom I have chosen, that you may know and believe and understand that I am he. Before me there was no Elohim formed, nor shall there be after me. I, even I, am Yehovah, and besides me there is no Savior. His witness are his aved, his servants. And there are no female aved. No, there's not. There's a ma. There's one other word for a house servant, female servant. We're talking about men. If a false witness arises, here, we already read this, 16 through 19, and both men of the controversy. Yeah, here we are. If the witness is a false witness who has testified falsely against his brother, then you shall do to him as he thought to do to his brother. Hear that? Here's a man who's bearing false witness. He's trying to get the guy killed. Because he's bearing false witness, when he gets found out, he gets killed. Wow, pretty serious, isn't it? But look at what the next verse says. And those who remain shall hear and fear, and hereafter they shall not again commit such evil among you. He says, all your eyes, your eye shall not pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Do you hear what's going on here? Your hand shall not pity. Let's look at this whole idea. You know, we've got some things in the New Testament that were given to us really by the Catholic Church. And I think the Catholic Church had something at stake with the brutality that they had for men who were following the ways of Yehovah, slaughtering, using burnt offerings, keeping the Sabbath. Do you think if you could teach them to do something different, that you could control the population? He says, your eye shall not pity. Life shall be for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Here's Exodus. If two men fight and hurt a woman with child, so that she gives birth prematurely, yet no harm follows, he shall surely be punished according to as the woman's husband imposes on him, and he shall pay as the judge determines. But if any harm follows, then you shall give life for life. Did he kill the baby? He gets killed. Eye for eye. Did he hurt the baby? Tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. What if two men are fighting and one of the men gouges out another man's eye? Is he going to lose his eye? What if he burns that other man? Is he going to be burned? Do you think you'd have less fighting going on in the world? What great statutes and what great judgments does this great nation have that has Elohim so near to him that they may call upon him for whatever they desire? You know what? The nations are going to be envious of us when Yehovah raises us up. Right now they're not. They don't understand. They don't see it. But the time is coming. Here's another one, Leviticus 24. Whoever kills any man shall surely be put to death. Whoever kills an animal shall make it good, animal for animal. If a man causes disfigurement of his neighbor, as he has done, so shall it be done to him. That's what we were just talking about. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. As he has caused disfigurement of a man, so shall it be done to him. And whoever kills an animal shall restore it. But whoever kills a man shall be put to death. Like I say, that goes back all the way to Genesis 9. But here now, look at this. This is the New Testament. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you to resist any evil person. But whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other to him. Is that what Yehovah is commanding us? You've heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies, bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. For Yehovah your Elohim is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies. Here's the word that we're talking about for enemies in the Old Testament. This is our adversary. This is the one that Yehovah goes to fight with us against. The Oyeb, I guess is how you'd say that. Oyeb. To save you. Well, let's go to the next chapter. This is a very exciting chapter. I'd really like to get through this chapter and the next today. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. They're related very closely. Talking about when thou go out to battle against thy enemies, and see horses and chariots and people more numerous than they. Do not be afraid of them, for Yehovah thy Elohim is with thee, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Is he with thee if you've never been brought out of the land of Egypt? No, he's with the man who's been brought out of the land of Egypt. Well, we're talking about going to war. We're going to see these kinds of things in the last days. Let me just show you a few verses. I'm going to put these down here a little bit. This is Deuteronomy 3. As I commanded Joshua at that time, saying, thy eyes have seen all that Yehovah thy Elohim has done to these two kings, talking about Og and Sihon. Thy eyes have seen all that Yehovah, thy Elohim, has done to these two kings. So will Yehovah do to the kingdoms through which thou passest. Thou must not fear them, for Yehovah, thy Elohim himself, fights for thee. Here's another one. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help and rely on horses, who trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. But do not look to the Holy One of Israel, nor seek Yehovah. Shame on you. Don't look to the tanks. Don't look to the air cavalry. Look to Yehovah in these last days. Psalms 20 says, some trust in chariots, some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. No, Yehovah, our Elohim. Here, this is talking about his army in the last days. A fire devours before them. This is Joel 2. And behind them a flame burns. The land is like a garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Surely nothing shall escape them. Their appearance is like the appearance of horses, and like swift steeds, so they run. Then you shall call on the name of your Elohim. This is at Mount Carmel. This is Elijah speaking to Israel's seed, the men of Israel. Then you shall call on the name of your Elohim, and I will call on the name of Yehovah. And the Elohim, who answers by fire, he is Elohim. So all the people answered and said, it is well spoken. Isaiah 8 says, do not say a conspiracy concerning all that this people call a conspiracy, nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. You know, we can listen to a lot of propaganda. It keeps us from moving ahead and doing what's right. Nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. Yehovah of hosts, him you shall hallow. Let him be your fear. Let him be your dread. Don't listen to the threats. There's safety in trusting in the words of Yehovah. So it shall be. Remember, we're still talking about when you go to war. So it shall be when you are on the verge of battle that the priests shall approach and speak to the people. Which people are the priests going to come and speak to? The people here are all male people. Ladies don't go to war, and no priest is going to approach a woman. No, it's not going to happen. I wanted to write something today on Facebook, but I was having problems getting this conference room started. I ended up spending a lot of time on that. But I wanted to say something about in the kingdoms of the Gentiles, women fight. Women kill other men. In Israel, the state, another kingdom of the Gentiles, women fight and women kill other men. Does that happen in Yehovah's kingdom? Think about that as we read these verses. I think you'll be surprised. This is the priest speaking to the people. He says, you shall say to them, hear, O Israel, today you are on the verge of battle with your enemies. Do not let your heart faint. Let's see if that's the Oyeb that we were talking about, that enemies. I bet it is. Israel, go to approach. Your enemies. Oyeb, there it is. Oyeb. When it says love your enemy and feed him, this is a different word altogether. It's not the same word. This is somebody who is outside of our kingdom. When we're talking about loving your enemy and feeding him when he hungers, that's not the same enemy. This is somebody that's just not on the same wavelength as you are. But it's a much different term. Got to understand the terminology and the vocabulary involved here. And he shall say, Hear, O Israel, today you're on the verge of battle with your Oyabs, Oyavedim, something like that. Do not let your heart faint. Do not be afraid and do not tremble or be terrified because of them. For Yehovah, your Elohim, is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies. That's the same word again, to save you. Here I've got, Hear, O Israel. Oh, there it is right there. Oh, yeah, I already had it looked up. Now, that was the priest talking to the people, the men, Ezra men. Then the officers will speak to the people, saying, look what it says. What man? What man? Here's what it really says. Who is the man? Who is the man who has built a new house? Here it is right here. I'm reading it on the right. And has not dedicated it. Ha-ish. Who is Ha-ish? This is not ladies. This is men. And has not dedicated it. Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another Ish dedicate it. I'm going to continue reading on the right-hand side here for verse 6. Also, who is the man, Ha-ish, who has planted a vineyard and has not eaten of it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another Ish eat of it. Next one. Who is the man, Ha-ish, who has betrothed a woman? Do you hear what's going on here? There are no ladies in our camp. Betrothed a woman and has not taken her, lakak, her. Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another Ish, lakak, her. One more, verse 8. Actually, this is 8 and 9. It says, the officers shall speak further to the people. Remember, these was the officers who were speaking. First the priest spoke, now the officers are going to speak. Then the officers shall speak further to the people. What people? The Ezra men. And say, here it is, shall speak further to the people and say, who is Ha-ish, who is fearful and faint-hearted? Oh, isn't this interesting? There's so many reasons why a man doesn't go to war. You know, I remember in World War I and World War II that if a man didn't go to fight for his country, oh man, we were so perverted. We don't know why wars are started. We don't know who's funding both sides of wars. The men who stayed behind, if they were precluded from fighting, some of them killed themselves. Look at this. Here's men who has planted a field and hasn't eaten of it, who's built a house and hasn't lived in it, who's betrothed himself to a woman and hasn't taken her yet. Here's men. Who is the man who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house, lest the heart of his brethren, there's no lady, learn a fate like his heart. And so it shall be when the officers have finished speaking to the people, the Ha'am are all men. They shall make captains of the armies to lead Ha'am. Here, I had one verse on 8. Look at this. I put, Gideon sent over 2/3 of his men back. This is just in one of the 3 things that Yehovah did to reduce the size of his army. Look at what it says here. Now therefore proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, whoever is afraid, fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart at once from Mount Gilead. And 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. Hear that? He had 32,000 men. 22,000 of those guys went back. He's left with 10. That's over 2/3 who left because they were afraid. How interesting is that? Who's going to get the glory? We saw it was Yehovah that got the glory. And this was just the first or second time. There was still going to be more. He got down to, 200 men? I think that's what it was. And so it shall be when the officers have finished speaking to the people, the men people, that they shall make captains of the armies to lead the people. When thou go near a city, here's a new thought. When thou go near a city to fight against it, this is still with when you go to war, but now we're talking about when we're besieging a city. Then proclaim and offer a peace to it. Interesting, that's going to happen in these last days. And it shall be that if they accept, here, I know here, what is the promise to Jacob? Peoples shall serve thee. Talk about the promise of Jacob. People shall serve thee, and to thee communities shall bow down. Be master over thy brethren. This is the what do we call that? The blessing that his father gave to him, thinking that he was giving it to Esau. Be master over thy brethren. This is a plural. This is the gates of Isaac. Brethren, all the people who are within your gates. And let thy mother's son bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone who curses thee, and blessed be those who bless thee. This is in complete agreement with what we're seeing here. And when thou go near a city to fight against it, and then proclaim and offer a peace. And it shall be that if they accept thy offer of peace, and open to thee, that all the people who are found in it shall be placed under tribute to thee, and serve thee. Now if this city will not make peace with thee, but wars with thee, then thou shalt besiege it. And when Yehovah thy Elohim delivers it into thy hands, thou shalt strike every male and it with the edge of the sword. Did you hear that? Every male. But the women, the Nashim, and the tough. You know, I had the question, all the women? All the women? I don't think we take all the women. We'll see. But that's not what we did with Midian. Remember, we took the virgin women. We killed the other women. We killed the little boys. We kept the young girls, the virgins. That was it. That was Numbers 31. It says, and they took the spoil and the booty of man and beasts. Then they brought the captives, the booty, and the spoil to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to the congregation of Israel's seed, to the camp in the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho. But what did he say later on in that chapter? This was Moses. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has known a man intimately. I put, but when do we ever leave a foreign woman who has known a man alive? Here's Joshua. So all the people, men, shouted when the priests blew the trumpets. And it happened when the people heard the sound of the trumpets. And the people shouted with a great shout that the walls fell down. Then the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city, and they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man, women, young, old, ox, sheep, donkey, with the edge of the sword. Here's I. And you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. Only the spoil and its behemah, those are the animals. The spoil would be the gold and the silver, the precious things. And the animals you shall take as booty for yourselves. Lay an ambush for the city behind it. So here we are, but the women and the little ones, the livestock and all that is in the city, all its spoil. Remember, this is the one who rebelled against us when we gave him an offer of peace. Thou shalt plunder it for thyself. Thou shalt eat the enemy's plunder, which Yehovah thy Elohim gives thee. Thus you shall do to all the cities which are very far from you. This is the cities who are far from us. But now we're going to have a challenge with the ones who are closer to us, which are not of the cities of these nations. Now he says, again, it's a new thought, but it's within the same context. But the cities of these people, which Yehovah thy Elohim gives thee as an inheritance, thou shalt let nothing that breathes remain alive. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Jebusite, as Yehovah thy Elohim has commanded thee. Again, we got challenges. Amorite and a Jebusite are the same people. A Perizzite is not a Canaanite, but a Hittite and an Amorite, a Jebusite and a Hivite are all Canaanites. It gets crazy. Lest they teach, why are we destroying them? Why? Lest they teach you to do according to all their abominations which they have done for their Elohim, their lawmakers and judges. And you sin against Yehovah thy Elohim. Their Elohim, Yehovah thy Elohim. Same word. Lawmakers and judges. When you besiege a city for a long time, while making war against it to take it, thou shalt not destroy its trees or wield an axe against them, if you can eat them. Do not cut down and use in a siege, or do not cut them down and use them in a siege. For the trees of the field, it says, is man's food. No, that's not what it says. It says the trees of the field is the man's. The man's. Ha-Adam's. I believe he's talking about the man who's going to inherit that portion of land. It's the man's. Doesn't say anything about food. It just says it's the man's. Don't cut it down. Only the trees which thou know are not trees for food, thou may destroy and cut down, to build siege works against a city that makes war with thee until it is subdued. This is what happens when we go to war. There is one more chapter. I'd really like to do this chapter too. Man found slain, taking a captive. Oh, maybe this isn't what I was thinking it was. These are more miscellaneous things than anything. Hanging a man, rebellious son. You know what? I think I'm going to stop here. We're going to cover this next week. 21 and 22. This is really what I wanted to cover this week, was the Israel going to war. All right. Hey, thank you for joining me. I know this is a little bit shorter than usual, but that's okay. All right. Well, hey, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again next week. Love you tons. Bye now.